Coming up, strong winds send 2 women flying over the glass window bridge in North Eleuthera. Only one station tonight has the story. Many communities plagued with water shortages over the weekend. We have an update for you. Small hotels given energy-saving tips to help them with their bottom line. And war vets remembered. We take a look at the men who represented the Bahamas in World War II. It's Monday, November 7th. Stay close. The Bahamas Tonight starts right now.
Covering the islands of the Bahamas, ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight.
It's great to have you along this evening. I'm Shanique Miller. This is the Bahamas Tonight National Report. Strong rip currents and rough surf continued for a third straight day. The bad weather causing an accident on the glass window bridge in North Eleuthera. And today, a deadly boating accident in Abaco. We'll get to those stories in just a moment. But first, we start with meteorologist Basil Dean. Now, Basil, this is some serious weather. The warning has gone out for swimmers to stay clear of the water and for small craft to stay docked. How strong are the winds attached to the system, and how dangerous does this make the water?
Shanique, the winds are not the major factor. The swells are what is causing the problems. And since Friday of last week, computer models indicated that this low-pressure system will develop to the north and east of the Bahamas, which it did, and will generate some dangerous swells. And as a result of that, we issued a special marine advisory on Friday, which carries right through Tuesday, which would be tomorrow. And we might have to extend that into Wednesday, and that depends on how things look tomorrow when we run the models again. But nevertheless, boaters were advised to remain in port over the period, at least through Tuesday, because of these dangerous swells. And of course, the swimmers were advised to stay out of the waters, because with these serious swells, you're going to have the rip currents developing. And if you're not a very, very strong swimmer, rip currents could be a major, major problem. And we're just advising residents, visitors alike, to stay out of the waters. Small craft operators, you should remain in port at least through Tuesday, and by tomorrow we would decide whether or not we will extend that into Wednesday. But certainly by Thursday, things will be simmering down quite nicely and things should be back to normalcy.
Now, Basil, of course, we're showing video of the strong surf that was happening all weekend, including today. What's behind the system?
As I said already, that low-pressure system developed just to the north of us, and what will develop out of that is a front boundary which will eventually push through the capital. We'll get to the details of that later in the newscast, but for the moment, we are focusing on that low-pressure system which has just been meandering to the north and east of us for the last few days now, and we'll stay there through tomorrow. It will start pushing northward come Wednesday, and that is when we will have some sort of relief. But until then, the message is to stay out of the waters for your swimmers, and boaters, we're asking you to just simply remain in port until you get the all-clear sign from the Department of Meteorology. My
final question, Basil, of course, people aren't listening, apparently so, of the 2 ladies in North Eleuthera and, of course, the boaters just today in Abaco. Can you stress the importance of people listening and following these warnings?
The only thing I can do, Shanique, is to once again appeal to the Bahamian populace to listen to what we are saying. We are the experts. We know what is happening. We have the models at hand, and it all indicates that things will continue to be rough, at least through tomorrow, possibly up to Wednesday. So until then, please, just simply stay out of the waters.
Of course, Basil, of course, we'll have a lot more from you coming up in just a few minutes. But tonight, a 50-year-old man is dead and another is missing at sea. It's the result of a deadly boating accident that happened just off Abaco today and could be the result of that bad weather we've been experiencing. According to police, a 48-foot fishing vessel left the CJ dock at Marsh Harbor, reportedly en route to Port-au-Prince, Haiti, with 6 people on board, the captain and 5 Haitian nationals. However, they didn't get very far. It's reported that as the boat was going through Manawar Channel, it encountered extremely rough seas and overturned. Authorities haven't released the identities or the gender of the victims. However, NEMA's director, Captain Stephen Russell, gives this update on the 4 injured people.
They had been stabilized and they were eventually released, those 4 persons who were reported into the clinic. And later than that, they were turned over to the police for investigation. So there may be some concerns based on the composition, 1 Bahamian national and 6 Haitian nationals, that there may be some other activities that they may have been involved in.
Some residents didn't heed the warning, the weather warning, and they felt the wrath. Clint Watson joins us live in studio. He's just back now from North Eleuthera and the mishap on the glass window bridge. Clint, I know you've been following this story all day. What can you tell us tonight?
Shanique, we've been reporting this since this morning on radio, and you know the particulars already. And for those who are just hearing it for the first time, here's what we can tell you. Because of those strong winds that we heard Basil talking about moments ago in the glass window bridge, you know, that's already an area where the seas is rough. On one side it's calm, the other side is the actual ocean. And so you can imagine when you have these kind of rip currents flowing, what kind of winds you can expect on that bridge. And that's why they normally would close this bridge down whenever you have these kind of warnings. And that's exactly what happened. You can see yourself in the video how ferocious those winds and those waves are. And imagine those coming up over the actual bridge itself. And that's what happened. As a matter of fact, when we were here shooting this earlier today, this is during a time of low tide. So imagine when it's high tide, what you can experience. And that's why they closed the bridge down on both ends. So if you're trying to commute from north to south, you simply can't. And I often tell people it's a day they refer to as a holiday, because once this kind of thing happens and the bridge is closed, there's simply no commuting back and forth. Whether it's school, whether it's work, no one can pass on this particular bridge because of the danger of this. And what would have happened is on yesterday, you would have had a group of women who were out in a car, two women taking photographs on top of those rocks right there that you see. The winds would have been so high and so difficult, it would have pushed one of the women over, two of the women actually. Luckily, though, they fell onto the rocks rather than onto the ocean, and people were able to pull them out right before another wave came and swept them away. Of course, you know, they were severely injured, especially one particular woman. She was severely injured. She was taken to the clinic in Eleuthera where she was treated and then airlifted late last night here to the capital. We're told her legs are broken and a lot of scratches, you can imagine, are falling upon those rocks. It's a concern that residents in Eleuthera we spoke to today all over concerned about, and what most of them have been calling for is for really the government to reconstruct another bridge that's closer to the calmer side of the waters rather than the rough side, as because of what you see happening here, the bridge being shut down. And so a lot of them are saying that they've been asking a number of governments in the past, subsequent governments, to please build this new bridge. No one has yet risen to the challenge, and you can imagine why. We were able to talk to the administrator for North Eleuthera, Mr. Preston Cunningham, who shared his views on the issue of what residents are calling for. Here's what he had to say.
I suppose it wouldn't hurt sometime later on putting one in place, but I think the efforts are being made with respect to that. The structure as we know it now has already been examined. And, you know, we have a lot of Arbely Islands, a lot of things to do, and everything couldn't be done in a day. That kind of project is a very, very expensive project, and so it will take a little time.
Do you agree, though, that the structure that exists now is deteriorating?
There is a little deterioration from what I have seen that could be rectified quickly.
When you have the bridge closed on days like this, does it hamper the economics of people who have to commute back and forth?
Yes and no.
And Shanique can tell you exactly how it really challenges some of the workers. One particular lady who was actually in the airport working for Pineapple Air, this is how she gets home. She lives in Gregory Town, but of course she can't pass through the glass window bridge in order to get home. So what happens in the evening in order for her to get home? She simply jumps on the plane, takes a flight over to Governor's Harbor, and then drives home from there. So people have to actually fly from one end to the next if they want to get back and forth because the bridge, of course, is closed. And hopefully it'll be reopened once these strong seas and winds subside sometime tomorrow. Shanique, back to you.
Clint is almost a legend. Eleutherans certainly know the danger of the bridge when bad weather is approaching or perhaps is on the island. How is it that they didn't heed the warnings of meteorologists to stay clear of the water, certainly of that area?
That's a question we've been asking all day. And a lot of people have said to us, oh, we didn't hear the warnings, oh, we didn't recognize it was that difficult. I think the challenge here is the bridge at one point was open. If you can imagine this morning when we were doing interviews with police, that's when the bridge was about to be closed. So yesterday the bridge would have still been open when this would have happened. So there obviously would have been communication challenges there as to what time the bridge closed, because it would have still been open to some people is what we're being told. And so again, there has to be some coordination coordination between these warnings being issued by Met officials and some official on the island actually closing the bridge. And then again, people just heeding the warnings, because even while we were up there taping this afternoon, there were still some people who actually removed the actual gate that was closed. It's a chain link fence, and people are actually moving the chain and still going under and going through, even in that danger zone. So there's still some people who just won't heed because they feel they have to get where they're going. Hopefully people recognize how serious it is, and after this incident, they'll recognize the importance of really adhering to the precautions.
We can only hope, Clint. Of course, thank you very much. Good to have you back. Well, the bad weather also impacting water barging operations. Over the weekend, consumers were angered as the water pressure in some areas was very low. And although the matter was resolved, there are still some lingering challenges. Fern Carey has the story.
Extreme weather conditions preventing the Titus from offloading some 3 million gallons of water at Arawa Key. The vessel, which barges water from Andros, has only been able to make one delivery since last Thursday due to rough seas and high waves. And although it arrived at Nassau this morning, the vessel was unable to dock at Arawa Key due to the bad weather, moving instead to Prince George Dock, which means that consumers may have to deal with another day of low water supply or none at all. Minister of State for the Utilities, Fenton Nemore, says the Titus can only offload at Arawa Key.
Water and Sewage Corporation have only had one delivery of the Titus since last week, Thursday, to New Providence. And so they've been deprived of that 3 million gallons a day. As you can see behind me, the seas are pretty rough. We experienced over the weekend in open seas up to 19 feet waves. Today, they're estimating the waves to be about 14 feet, which is significant.
Portions of the Titus were also damaged and a crew member injured in the bad weather, according to Captain Angeron.
The last few days have been real rough. Last night we were getting 35-knot winds and 14 to 16-foot ground swells. I have a crew member at the hospital now, got hurt last night on board, and we were doing 2 knots into the seas last night and getting waves on the stern when we were heading into them. That's how high the bow was coming up out the water.
Come next month, Water and Sewage will terminate its long-standing contract with the Titus, ending 40 years of barging in the Bahamas. As for what's next for the Titus, Captain Angeron says it's unclear what will happen to the vessel or the crew once its contract ends with Water and Sewage. Fern Carey, ZNS News.
The Water and Sewage Corporation is resolving water challenges here in the capital. Officials are optimistic that their reverse osmosis plant in the capital will surely meet demands. Janelle Noel has the story.
Water challenges experienced in the capital over the weekend will soon become a thing of the past. The Water and Sewage Corporation is counting on its Blue Hills desalination plant to be able to produce up to 10 million gallons of water, exceeding their demand. According to Assistant General Manager Robert Deal, as the contract to barge water from Andros comes to an end next month, the company is working on making this a smooth transition.
The end of the contract is officially December 2nd, and we expect any day now for the expansion to start producing water and giving that water to us. And then once that process starts, over the next 3 to 4 weeks, we'll have a transition period where we'll be testing our systems, testing our pumping stations, etc., making sure that as we reconfigure our system, that our customers are receiving the same level of service or better.
And after the transition, here's what is expected.
We expect the opposite to happen. You know, we have had challenges in the past with respect to cutbacks, etc. 2 things we're expecting right away. The first thing is that facility, as I mentioned, is capable of producing 4 million gallons per day. Shipping presently brings in the range of 2.7 million gallons a day. For right away, that's an additional 1.3 million gallons of water per day we'll have. So we're looking to end the cutbacks right away.
While weekend water challenges were soon resolved, Deal explained some problems which might arise when shipping water and how the expanded water plant will bring relief.
As we approach the Christmas season, the winter season, we start having cold fronts. Once those cold fronts start, the ship has problems moving on a regular basis. In fact, just last night, because of an incoming cold front, they had challenges leaving Arawa Key. Desalination is going to be a much more reliable source of water, and so we expect that those challenges we would have had with shipping in the past with respect to cold fronts, hurricanes, tropical storms to be a thing of the past.
The public, meantime, can also play a role, and the corporation is encouraging residents to conserve water whenever possible. Janelle Noel, ZNS News.